Welcome back. So we just finished the rights ethic, pardon me, and now we're going to do the theory of justice. This is basically the idea that we should all kind of behave fairly towards each other to maintain some sort of a bonds of a community, and that's community is kind of ambiguously defined. The problem with this theory of justice is generally it's applied to broader societal concerns as opposed to business. You can say things. For example, think of the theory of justice. I don't know if any of you remember after 9/11, they had all these commercials. Don't let the terrorist win. Go shopping. These are the kind of commercials that you saw. So in some ways, going out and buying products was patriotic and would maintain the American dream in some way. But again, it was looking at questions of American identity as opposed to something strictly business related. And so, of course, under the theory of justice, there's different kinds of justice. And we've talked about some of these already, and we'll continue to talk about them during the course. But you've got three. You've got distributive justice. Okay? That basically means that everyone has certain rights, responsibilities, and entitlements in society. And we can kind of share all those equally. Okay? Then there's also compensatory justice. So if you are damaged in some way, or if you have given up something of a certain value, then you should be rewarded or compensated proportionally based on your contribution or based on the damages done to you. Okay? And then, of course, you've got retributive justice. That's a way of placing blame and punishment for wrongdoing. So again, let's go ahead and sum these up one more time. So we've got distributive justice, which is everyone has equal protections and equal burdens in a contemporary society. You've got compensatory justice. Okay, people are rewarded based on their contributions or if they've been punished in some way by society. And then retributive, which is looking at imposition of blame and punishment for any sort of a wrongdoing. Okay, so we just finished theory of justice. Now, we've also got the utility, or utilitarian ethic. Okay? Now, this, of course, generally is seen to be coming from Jeremy Bentham, John Stuart Mill. And it's basically the greatest good for the greatest number. That's how we interpret it in contemporary circles. But that's really not what ancient Greek philosophers had in mind when they defined utility. Okay, you have to remember Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill were both very prominent socialists in their day, and so they look at greatest good for the greatest number. That's a principle of socialism. But ancient Greek philosophers said the greatest amount of pleasure for the least amount of pain, and that's the definition I want you to use. Greatest amount of pleasure, least amount of pain. Now the problem with that is greatest amount of pleasure, least amount of pain, for whom? Does that mean that you average out the pleasure and the pain across a population? Or could it mean that, for example, a dictator has a tremendous amount of pleasure and other people across the country have a tremendous amount of pain? Okay? Does it mean that you average out the pleasure and the pain across society, or can you concentrate it at the top and the bottom like you would from a dominance model perspective? Looking at it from a business perspective, think about layoffs. Well, we can lay off 10% of the company's workforce so that 90% may continue to work. That's an example of utility in action. Again, some people will inevitably suffer. So we just did the utility ethic. And I think what we're going to do is, looking at our time, let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about the virtue ethic. Okay? Not necessarily a true ethical principle, but it's nonetheless important. And that basically says that ethical behavior stems from character virtues built up by habit. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, that kind of thing. Colloquially, I think about, when I was in high school, I played on the JV basketball team. And every Christmas, we'd have these tournaments. On my Christmas break was spent playing, these basketball tournaments. And we go out, growing up in San Diego, we'd go out to these schools in East San Diego. And, they would just kill us. I mean, we'd lose by 30 or 40 points. I mean, we didn't have a chance against these kids. They were so much better than us. And when you play like 6 tournament games over a Christmas break instead of hanging out at home with your family, when you're doing all these tournament games, and then you lose every single one of them, you're pretty upset. And I remember my grandpa used to look at me and say, "But it builds character." I didn't want my character built, at least not in that way. Anyhow, but the whole idea of the virtue ethic is that by taking certain steps in a process, your character becomes stronger in some way. And then, of course, our last thought for today will be the critical questions approach. So, again, trying to navigate these 14 different ethical principles is a challenge. Okay? We're not going to necessarily, say, well, the organization ethic says I should apply this doctrine in this way, and that's the way we're going to do it. No, nobody thinks like that. But what you can do is say, I've got this decision to make. How would it look under the organization ethic? How would it look under the doctrine of the mean? How does it look? How do I feel about it? Okay? And you can start asking these questions and kind of get some sort of a sense of how ethical or unethical a certain series of behaviors may or may not be. So, I hope you've enjoyed this lesson on ethics. Again, my name is Duncan Pelley, and we'll see you next time.